My son hadn't spoken to me in 10 years, and yet, the night I turned 70, he walked into the restaurant as if no time had passed. The candles were already melting when he appeared at the door, smile rehearsed, handshake ready, holding a silver envelope instead of a gift. Everyone turned to greet him, the room full of polite surprise, but my heart stayed still. 10 years of silence had trained it well. He leaned in, kissed the air beside my cheek, and said, "Happy birthday, Dad." The envelope touched my hand, smooth, heavy, intentional. I opened it because people were watching. Inside wasn't a card, nor a note. It was a contract. 2 pages, folded with care, carrying the kind of offer that pretends to be love. He said it was about family legacy, rebuilding trust, joining hands again. But the words read like a merger. His signature was already there. Mine was the one missing. Everyone laughed, assuming it was sentimental, a playful family surprise. Harper filmed it all, smiling like she'd directed the moment herself. I didn't smile back. The candles flickered, wax dripping onto frosting, 10 tiny flames for 10 silent years. Liam's voice carried over the applause, calm, certain, already pitching something invisible. I caught only fragments. Trust, future, alignment. The kind of language that turns affection into an asset. I didn't say much. Just nodded, like any father trying not to ruin his own birthday. The silence between us was older than either of us wanted to admit. Still, I raised my glass, said, "We'll talk after dessert," and the table cheered like I'd forgiven him. But forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a lock that sometimes never turns. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a reunion. It was a transaction wearing a cake. You might wonder how a birthday turned into a business pitch, or how a father's silence became his sharpest weapon. I'll tell you. But before I do, subscribe so you don't miss the stories where justice doesn't shout. It signs. Now let's go back to the day the invitation arrived. The invitation misspelled my name. 10 years of silence, and the first thing they got wrong was the only word that still belonged to me. Thick cardstock, gold foil, a polite request for RSVPs, and the unsubtle hint of a budget. Dress smart casual. The note inside said, "We should reconnect." No apology required when there's a theme and a cake. I arrived on time because people who live alone usually do. The restaurant had that wedding photograph glow. Amber lights, white linen, centerpieces that charged by the inch. The private room was staged like a reunion brochure. 2 rows of chairs angled toward a long table, a little podium in the corner nobody had asked for, and a projector already humming. My name, spelled wrong again, rested in a tent card at the head seat. Liam was posted at the doorway, giving guests a handshake that lingered just long enough to be mistaken for warmth. He said I looked good, in the tone people use when they're cataloging assets. Harper floated behind him, air-kissing and choreographing, moving relatives along the grazing table as if kindness could be plated. She complimented my jacket, told me I looked younger than 70, and asked me to stand near the cake so the photos would tell the right story. I nodded. Silence makes a very cooperative prop. Behind them, the kids, Maya and Cole, played a game with sugar packets, stacking little white bricks into a small city. No one had told them that adults build cities out of expectations, then send each other the demolition bill. I bent down and asked Maya if I could borrow one of her sugar roofs. She hesitated, then handed me the smallest one. Trust is transferable in children. You can feel it move from their palm to yours like a coin. The room filled with people who said they'd missed me. They hadn't. What they missed was the convenience of a narrative that made them look generous. 2 men in trim suits apologized for being late and slid into seats near the cake. Their laughter had decimal points. The projector screen lit up with a gradient and a logo so clean it smelled like a pitch. Harper dimmed the lights and shushed the table. A hush arrived. Thin and obedient, I kept my hand in my breast pocket and felt the cold, familiar face of the broken watch. The pawn ticket had faded years ago, but the groove where my thumb pressed the crown was still there. I'd slipped a folded paper inside the case this morning, the only voicemail my son left me in a decade. "Dad, I'm busy. I'll call you back." I never wanted to weaponize it. I kept it because paper remembers what people revise. They sang, off-key, earnest. I made a wish for no more acting and blew the decade out. Wax ran toward the edges like time that had made up its mind. When the clapping stopped on cue, Liam took a breath and set his smile to on. He told the room how much it meant to be together, how life gets busy, how families bend but don't break. The podium light picked the starch out of his collar. He thanked Harper for making everything seamless, thanked the venue for accommodating last-minute AV needs, and thanked me for being open to new beginnings. The deck blinked awake behind him, a first slide promising a stronger tomorrow. That was the first crack. Cracks rarely sound like shouts. They sound like something ordinary under the wrong pressure. He pivoted from gratitude to a soft commercial. He said he'd learned so much building his company and wished he'd had a mentor like me earlier. He said investors were excited, a bridge round was in motion, and that a familiar name on the advisory board could stabilize the runway. He didn't look at me when he said familiar. He looked at the room. I raised my water. The ice clinked like a metronome. I let him keep talking. Because the smartest counters don't interrupt. They collect. Harper stepped in at his shoulder with bullet points dressed as sentiment. Bridge round, family alignment, legacy. She used the word steward twice, as if decency were something you could assign on a spreadsheet. I let a small smile tilt and smoothed the linen with my free hand. The napkin had a thread out of place, a tiny imperfection the color of honesty. I pressed it flat. Pattern interrupt. The overhead vent clicked. Someone at the bar dropped a shaker, and the projector fan coughed. The room returned to its breath. My plate arrived. I cut the chicken as if I needed the practice, chewed like I had all night. Liam's friends asked me about my comeback, the articles they'd skimmed, the new apartment with an elevator that didn't apologize. They asked if I missed traveling for work, then told me about passive income as if it were a vitamin. I told them the truth lightly. I read more than I sign, and I show up early to places where showing up matters. They nodded the way people nod when they're waiting for their turn. Halfway through the meal, Harper leaned in as if whispering was intimacy. She said they'd set aside a few minutes after cake to share a small update, and wondered if I'd stand with Liam for a photo when they did. I said I'd stand where the light was honest. She laughed, thinking it was a joke. She's quick, but speed isn't the same as insight. I excused myself and walked the hallway to the restrooms. Past the kitchen door, a busser nudged a trash can lid with his foot, thoom, like a muffled gavel. In the shallows of the corridor, a side room waited with its light off, a stainless cabinet along the wall and an outlet near the floor. The door gave a courteous squeak. I tested the cabinet, found it empty, and measured the shelf with my hand. It gave back a calm, metallic hum. Rooms tell you what they'll hold if you listen. Back at the table, Harper had the candles ready, and the two suited men had migrated 3 chairs closer. They were laughing with their whole teeth. Liam set a black velvet box in front of my place setting and tapped it twice with his forefinger. He told me to open after the song. I told him I'd open what mattered when it mattered. He thought that was banter. It wasn't. They sang again, shorter, merciful. "Speech!" someone chirped. I declined with an open palm and slid the broken watch from my pocket onto the linen, face up. The second hand was stuck forever between 2 seconds. A life paused on its way to accuracy. I touched the crown with my thumb and didn't wind it. I looked across the table at Liam and saw a man who could outrun almost anything except his reflection. He started a new paragraph for the room about legacy planning. I listened for verbs. Promise, align, leverage, protect. He said the word guaranteed and corrected himself to targeted. The projector clicked to a slide labeled Advisory Board, stabilized by family. The bullet points were tasteful, the font unthreatening. That was the second crack. I let the room have its performance. I let the story breathe because attention shrinks when you strangle it. While Liam explained the difference between signal and noise, Maya slid a sugar packet tower toward me, proud of its balance. I whispered that buildings stand longer when the base is wider than the roof. She widened the base. Cole scribbled a truck on his paper placemat and added a tiny box trailer when I asked where the weight would go. If a 7-year-old can adjust for load, a grown man can too. The waiter refilled glasses. The ice chimed. Harper's bracelet ticked against the stem of her goblet. The deck advanced to a slide with a timeline that assumed no friction. I felt the watch under my hand and thought of how easy it is to tell time when you never look at the face. That voicemail inside the case, 14 words and a decade of air, had waited long enough. Provocation. Turn the party into a funnel. Moral pause. Don't rise to it. Smart counter. Change the room. I asked the waiter to hold the cake another minute. I asked Harper if the small side room down the hall was available for a proper thank you. She loved the phrase. She loves anything that suggests a plan. She waved a server over, a quick cutting motion through the air that looked like efficiency when it was really impatience. He nodded, said he'd clear the back room, and returned with a key that jingled like a question. I slid the velvet box slightly away from my plate. Liam's hand moved as if to pull it back into center frame. I let him. He needs his props. I kept the watch visible. Memory belongs on the table when the story tries to forget it. He leaned in just enough to be private in a public way and told me we could use my name without my time. Just a signature, just optics, just temporary. He called it a bridge, as if there were a shore on the other side guaranteed to exist. I said bridges are safest when they're inspected before anyone drives. He chuckled and said I was old-fashioned. The projector fan revved and, for a second, the lights flickered. One clean, honest blink that made the room show its seams. Everyone laughed. Not hard. Just enough. That was the third crack. Harper announced cake. The children bounced. The two suited men stood to shake my hand as if congratulations were transferable. The waiter brought the knife, placed it next to the face of the broken watch, and asked me where I wanted the first slice to go. I told him, the back room. The first slice of cake hadn't even landed before Liam leaned toward me, voice wrapped in politeness. Dad, there's something I'd love to discuss. Quick thing. Family to family. There it was. The ask hiding behind the frosting. He spoke softly, the way people do when they're about to trade affection for paperwork. I've been talking to a few partners. They want me to expand. We just need a credible advisor on the board. Someone with your experience. Your signature alone would put investors at ease. He paused, waiting for approval that wasn't coming. Harper smiled beside him, reading the silence like a green light. It's nothing complicated, really. You wouldn't even need to show up, just lend your name. We'd make sure you benefit, of course. That word, benefit, had a certain stench when spoken too smoothly. I set my fork down, straightened the napkin, and asked, "How much are you asking for this credibility?" Liam laughed. "Dad, it's not about money. It's about family, about rebuilding trust." Trust. Interesting choice of currency. I reached into my pocket and placed the broken watch on the table between us. The steel gleamed under the restaurant lights, cracked crystal catching every glare. Liam's smile faltered. Harper tilted her head. "That's the watch I gave you when you turned 18, I said. "You pawned it 2 weeks later." He cleared his throat. "I was in college, Dad. I needed cash. That was, 10 years ago?" "Exactly 10, I said. "It's been keeping track, even while broken." I twisted the crown. The second hand refused to move. "Funny thing about watches, they stop working when you forget to wind them. Families, too." Harper forced a laugh. Well, at least that one has sentimental value. Sentiment, I said, doesn't run on batteries. The room murmured softly behind us. Someone toasted from another table, glasses clinking like faint applause. I leaned back, letting the pause breathe. Silence isn't absence. It's gravity. It pulls truth to the surface. Liam finally spoke. Dad, you're reading too much into this. We just want you to feel included. You've earned your place back in the story. I smiled, polite but sharp. Whose story? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The waiter arrived with a velvet box. From your son, he said, placing it neatly by my plate. Liam beamed. Open it. Inside was a sleek, gold-faced watch, new, heavy, flawless. I thought it was time to replace the old one, Liam said. New beginnings, right? I turned it over in my hand. The engraving on the back read, To Dad, moving forward. The irony was so perfect it almost deserved applause. Thank you, I said. But tonight, I prefer the one that doesn't tick. I set the new watch down beside the broken one. The contrast was loud enough to hear. Harper leaned closer. You're being dramatic. Dramatic, I repeated, letting the word settle like dust. That's what people call truth when it shows up uninvited. She tensed. Liam just wants to make things right. We all do. I nodded slowly. Making things right starts with telling things straight. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. Later, let's save the business for after dessert. That shut the conversation down, at least for now. But cracks, real cracks, don't close once they've been named. When the plates cleared, Liam's friends stood to stretch, muttering about quick calls. I caught a fragment, bridge round, soft close, advisory optics, and that was enough. The language of risk disguised as opportunity. They smiled at me like I was the missing line item on a spreadsheet. Harper leaned in again. We've booked the small room at the back for a quick chat after this. Nothing formal, just some paperwork. She said paperwork the way people say prayer, expecting me to agree out of habit. I gave a gentle nod. I'd love to say a few words myself after that. A thank you. Her relief was instant. Perfect. The camera crew can get both. The what? Just for content, she said. You know, documenting the night. Ah, the modern altar, social media validation, even repentance needs lighting now. I excused myself and stepped toward the hall again. My reflection followed in the polished window, a man who used to mistake silence for defeat. Now I wore it like armor. The side room was dim and empty. A stainless cabinet stood in the corner, humming faintly. I opened it, found space, and set a tiny recorder inside, the evidence token, not for revenge, for accuracy. People remember feelings, not facts. Machines remember both. When I returned, the cake was already on its way. Harper's project timeline was back on schedule. As everyone gathered around, she gave a small speech about healing, her eyes flicking to me every few seconds to make sure I was smiling. Then came the photo requests. I stood where they wanted, let them arrange my shoulders. The flash was white and false. Liam whispered while they posed. You'll see, Dad. This will be good for all of us. I looked past him, toward the children at the end of the table, still building cities out of sugar packets. Some structures, I said, aren't meant to hold weight. He didn't hear. He was already planning the next slide. When the flash faded, the waiter returned to light the candles again. Harper clapped her hands, too loud, too bright, and led the chorus. I let them sing halfway before I lifted my hand. Before we cut, I said. The room stilled. I want to open one thing, not a gift, just a memory. I opened the back of the broken watch with my thumb, revealing the folded paper I'd placed inside. Liam frowned. What's that? A promise, I said. The kind that expires when forgotten. I didn't read it, not yet. The words were for later. Timing, like justice, matters most when it's deliberate. I slipped the paper into my pocket and closed the case. After dessert, I said, let's have our talk then. The waiter hesitated with the knife. Harper smiled again, brittle as glass. Everyone clapped, thinking it was sentimental. They didn't know the cake was just the intermission. The hallway to the back room smelled of butter, lemon cleaner, and something waiting to happen. A young waiter led the way, nervous from over-politeness. Mr. Brooks, we've cleared the room for you. Should I bring the cake? Not yet, I said. Let's save the sweetness for when it's earned. The door clicked shut behind me. The side room was small. 2 tables pushed together, 4 chairs, a stainless cabinet by the wall, and one lone ceiling vent humming like a throat trying not to speak. Perfect. I took the recorder from my pocket, checked the red light, and slid it inside the cabinet. Not a trap, just a mirror. People forget what they sound like when they're lying. A minute later, Liam entered, Harper right behind him. Their confidence was choreographed. Matching pace, practiced smiles, eyes scanning for cues. He closed the door, leaving the world of toasts and flash photography outside. Dad, we really appreciate you doing this in private. You'll see, it's all clean, just formalities. He placed an iPad on the table. The screen lit with the blue and white glow of capitalism dressed as family. Graphs, projections, buzzwords, the whole digital symphony. Consolidated projections, he said. Strategic reinvestment, bridge capital. You just sign under advisory endorsement, strictly ceremonial. Ceremonial, like a wreath. Harper added softly, we'll take care of all the details. You'd be on the letterhead by next week. It'll help calm investors. Everyone wins. I didn't sit. I looked at the stainless cabinet, knowing the recorder was already preserving their rhythm. The optimism of people selling something they haven't quite admitted is sinking. Who are these investors? I asked. Small group, friends and family mostly, Harper said quickly. People who believe in us. Belief is a dangerous currency. I nodded toward the iPad. You talk a lot about faith in this document, but not much about accountability. Liam sighed, switching tone from salesman to son. Dad, we're not asking for money, just your name. You've been invisible for a decade. Let's make that useful. That was the quietest insult I'd ever heard. He didn't even know he'd said it. I reached into my pocket and unfolded the paper from the broken watch. The handwriting had faded, but the voicemail I'd transcribed was still legible. Dad, I'm busy. I'll call you back. I laid the paper between us. This is the last time your voice filled my house, I said. 10 years ago. Do you know how long 10 years of silence weighs? Liam stared at the page as if it were written in another language. Dad, I said I'd call. Life, I cut in, happened exactly as you planned it. But don't confuse progress with growth. He frowned. I came back, didn't I? I'm trying. You came back when you needed something. That's not trying, that's timing. Harper crossed her arms. We're not villains, Mr. Brooks. We're trying to build something good here. I know, I said. But good things don't start with pretending the bad didn't happen. The silence that followed was thick. The vent hummed. My heartbeat was steady. I looked at Liam. Let's skip the pitch. I already read your company's filings online. Half the training expenses went to personal cards. The last 3 months' fees are overdue. And that bridge round? Half the funds were spent before it closed. Liam's eyes went wide. You went through my records? I didn't have to. The internet did. I paused. You're smarter than this, son. That's what hurts the most. He leaned forward. So what? You want to embarrass me? Call the SEC? Is that what this is? I shook my head. I want you to stop before the SEC does. There's a difference. I reached for my bag and placed 3 sealed envelopes on the table marked A, B, and C in black ink. They looked almost ceremonial. Option A, I said. Send this to your lawyer. It contains the documents you need to file a clean voluntary correction. No fines, no public mess. Option B goes to your property manager, who's ready to negotiate your overdue payments before it hits your credit report. Option C goes to a journalist who's been following your company's pitch deck trail since April. Harper stiffened. You're blackmailing us? I smiled. No, I'm giving you a map. You can pick the route. Liam's jaw tightened. You've been planning this? Not planning, I said. Preparing. There's a difference between revenge and readiness. He shoved the iPad away. You think this makes you some moral hero? No, I said. It makes me a man who learned the hard way that silence only helps liars. So now I use silence to trap them instead. The recorder hummed softly behind the cabinet door. Steady, impartial. I pushed the envelopes toward him. Pick one. Liam stared at them like they were 3 different versions of his future. His throat moved, but no words came out. Harper touched his arm. Liam, take A. We can fix this quietly. He hesitated. And if I don't? I leaned back, folded my arms. Then C leaves this room before you do. A full minute of silence passed. You could hear the ice melting in the glasses outside. Finally, he reached out and tapped envelope A. Fine, he said. I'll do it. Good, I replied. Then tomorrow we meet with your lawyer. I'll be there, not as an advisor, but as a witness. Harper exhaled, relief and anger in equal parts. You're doing this to protect him, aren't you? Yes, I said, just not in the way he expected. I took the paper from the watch, folded it again, and slipped it back into my pocket. The day you actually call me back, we'll burn this together. Liam looked away. You don't trust me. I do, I said. I just don't delegate conscience. Outside, faint applause echoed from the main room. Another round of celebration for a moment they didn't understand. Harper broke the silence. They're waiting for you, Mr. Brooks. The candles. Let them wait, I said. For once, let time do the work. Liam gathered the envelopes, hands trembling slightly. You win, he muttered. This isn't a win, I said. It's a reset. He started to speak again, but I raised my hand. Save it for tomorrow. Tonight's for honesty, not excuses. I opened the door. The hallway's brighter light spilled in, washing the room's shadows into soft outlines. The vent hummed behind me, still recording, still impartial. As I stepped out, I turned back once more. If you ever want to know what integrity sounds like, I said quietly, listen to this tape tomorrow morning. You'll hear 2 versions of yourself, one selling, one learning. Then I closed the door. I didn't stop the recorder. Some silences deserve to keep running. When we stepped back into the main room, the air had shifted by a degree you could only feel if you'd just come from a smaller, truer room. The tables were louder, the smiles brighter, the waiter more eager with the knife. Harper's eyes did a quick scan, attendance, mood, optics, then landed on the envelopes in Liam's hand. She relaxed by a millimeter. You learn to see the small things after you've missed the big ones. A woman in a rain-dark coat slipped in near the door and stood there like a late paragraph, arriving with meaning. Elise. 10 years will sand the corners off a face, but history still fits like a familiar coat. She waved with 2 fingers, half greeting, half question. I nodded. Our past didn't need narration. Cake time, Harper said, ringing the room with that bright clap that sounds like a deadline. The kids slid into place. The 2 men in tapered suits made sure they were inside the radius of every camera phone. The podium light blinked awake again, ready to sanctify a sales pitch with family vowels. I set the broken watch back beside my plate, face up, a quiet witness. Liam tucked envelope A into his jacket like a hot wire he didn't want touching skin. We took the obligatory photo, posed father, redeemed son, forgiving wife, flawless frame. The flash pumped everyone full of momentary anesthesia. Before we cut, Liam said, hand on the mic, smile calibrated. Just a quick update. A celebration deserves a future, and our future looks The screen behind him bloomed to a slide with a gradient and a heading, "A Stronger Tomorrow." The bullet points marched out, disciplined as soldiers. Bridge round, advisory stability, family stewardship. That was the next crack. I felt the room's weight tilt toward the glow. Harper moved to the side of the podium, managing eye contact like ducts manage air. The suits drifted closer, all patience and polished shoes. Elise chose a chair against the wall and folded her coat on her lap, the way you do when you're not sure how long you'll stay. "Tonight we honor my dad," Liam said, and the word honor hit me like a spoon against an empty glass. "He's agreed to advise us." He caught himself, glanced at me, then revised the sentence mid-flight. "To advise, when the time is right." I let a small smile show. Timing is a language. We'd begun to pronounce it better in the back room. Harper took the mic. "Some of you asked how you can support. We'll meet in small groups after dessert to answer questions." She moved her hand like she was turning a dial from family to pipeline. No pressure, just clarity. Clarity doesn't arrive on command. It arrives the way storms do, after you ignore the smell of rain for too long. I raised my water. "A word before the knife," I said. The room hushed in that polite city dinner way, quickly and without commitment. I didn't take the mic. I don't like how it changes a voice. I touched the broken watch with my thumb. "This doesn't tick," I said. "It stopped when it wasn't wound. That's how memory works. And that's how families work when they call only when there's a deck." Half the room looked at the watch. The other half calculated how long until cake. The suits checked their phones. Harper kept her smile on. Elise tilted her head, listening for subtext she already knew. "I'm here," I continued, "and I'm not here to be a logo. Tonight is for honesty. Tomorrow is for paperwork done right. In that order." The waiter, relieved to have a cue, slid the knife toward me. Its blade flashed the projector's blue for a heartbeat. I put my hand over the handle and didn't move it. "Quick thing," I said. "For anyone who came to invest more than applause, if something in you expected guarantees tonight, that thing will go home hungry." There it was. The leak. Not of numbers, but of certainty. You can unmask a villain by making the costume unnecessary. A soft cough from the corner. Elise stood, smoothed her coat with one palm, and walked nearer, not all the way, just enough to be in the same paragraph. "Happy birthday," she said aloud this time. The room turned. She looked at me, then at Liam, and in that tiny triangle, a decade of plot condensed. 10 years, she said. "That's a long time to rehearse." She didn't smile when she said it. Harper stepped forward, still on brand. "Elise, we were just cutting." "We were," Elise answered. No warmth, no fire, just level. "You'll want to cut more than cake." The suits whispered. Phones tilted. The projector hummed a little louder, as if eager to be the brightest thing in the room. "Mom," Liam said, and that word still had an unbroken place to sit. "Let's not do this." "Do what, honey?" Elise asked, eyes steady. "The part where we pretend the plan was a surprise? Or the part where we call it family so the interest rate feels lower?" That was when the mask slipped. Not because anyone ripped it off, but because it had been on too long to stick. Harper reached for the mic, but I lifted a hand. Let her talk. Calm is a lever if you know where to place it. Elise faced the room. No slides, no deck, just a woman who had believed too many emails. Harper asked me to show up late so the video would balance the timeline. I came because I didn't want the children to think a full table guarantees a full heart. She looked at Maya and Cole. Her voice softened to save them and hardened to hold us. "I'm tired of calling money a bridge when it keeps being a cliff." The room made that sound crowds make when morality lands. A small, involuntary vowel. Harper flushed, then recovered. "This is getting performative," she said. "We're not pitching anyone. We're informing." I nodded at the suits. "Informing with intake forms?" They smiled the thin smiles of men allergic to accountability. One of them pocketed his pen without writing anything. The other pushed his chair back 2 inches. The physical measurement of risk management. "Dad," Liam said, strained now. "This is not the place." "It is exactly the place," I said quietly. "The only difference between public and private is whose memory survives. We'll choose memory." Hook reset. Nobody moved. I took out the folded slip from the watch and held it chest high like a modest flag. 10 years ago, I got one voicemail. I read it. "Dad, I'm busy. I'll call you back. No spin, no commentary, just the words and the decade inside them." I kept it because paper remembers when audio deletes. Tonight, I have another paper. I patted my jacket where A waited in Liam's pocket. It says, "Correction, repayment, audit, pause." Harper bristled. "You're humiliating him." "No," I said. "I'm naming what we already decided in the back room. You don't humiliate truth. You release it." Elise's eyes flicked to Liam's jacket. He didn't move. Then she turned to me. "So you're finally doing the thing you should have done before he learned to sell." "I'm trying," I said. A server dropped a tray at the bar, metal on tile, a clean percussive clang that put a period at the end of our sentence. The projector coughed and briefly lost signal. The screen grayed to a square of honest nothing. People stared at the blankness like it might confess. "That's better," I said. "Gray is honest. Slides are therapy for the uncomfortable." A laugh rippled, surprised and short. Even Harper smiled before she remembered not to. I handed the knife back to the waiter. "Give the kids the first slice," I told him. "They're the only ones not trying to eat the future." He nodded and veered toward the child end of the table. Maya clapped. Cole pointed at the frosting like a traffic cop. I turned to Liam, kept my voice for him alone. "Tomorrow at 9, Marta's office, bring everything." He stared past me at his timeline, now gone. "You really called a lawyer?" "Yes," I said. "To keep you from needing a criminal one later." He swallowed hard. "You can watch pride erode. It looks like a man learning to blink again." Harper tried a last pivot. "Everyone, please enjoy the cake. We're proud to share a small progress video after." She cued a short clip. Harmless family B-roll cut together with ambient piano. Kids laughing, candles, me walking through the door in slow motion. Then the video stumbled. 1 second of black, and a silent frame from the back room flashed by. 3 envelopes on a table. Then it was gone. You never get a better unmasking than an honest glitch. Gasps, small and sharp. Harper's hand flew to the remote, fingers scrambling. The suits stood too fast, bumping chairs. Elise exhaled through her nose, the sound of a woman done loaning out her calm. Harper forced a laugh. "Old footage, production mix-up." "New truth," Elise said. I didn't press it. You don't have to chase a mask when it falls on its own. "May I?" a voice asked near my elbow. Helen, a compact woman with a plain blazer and the steady eyes of someone who counts things for a living. She'd been quiet all night. Now she stepped forward, holding a simple envelope. "I was on your friends and family list," she said to Liam. "I'd like to be on your repayment list instead." Liam blinked. "We will." "Spare me the future tense," she said. She turned to me. "Do you have a pen?" I handed her one. She wrote her routing information, slid it to Harper, then faced the room. "I don't need heroes. I need receipts." That line landed like a verdict. Heads nodded, real nods this time. I lifted the broken watch and pressed the crown. No movement, but the gesture itself had weight. "We'll start those receipts tomorrow," I said. "Monthly, on the 1st. No adjectives." A scatter of relieved laughter, the kind that says finally, something measurable. Harper steadied herself. "We'll follow up by email." "No," I said. "By mail. Paper first, then pixels." Elise stepped closer, finally close enough that I could smell the rain in her hair. "I'll get the kids home," she said to Liam. "You two finish what you started." She looked at me. "And please, don't stop halfway." I won't, I said. She reached out and did something she hadn't done in a decade, adjusted the collar of my jacket with a small, absent tenderness that belonged to another era. Happy birthday, she repeated, softer now. Then she gathered Maya and Cole, kissed their heads, and left the room like a conclusion that knew it was earned. The suits leaked toward the exit, all apology and calendar conflicts. A few relatives pretended to remember early mornings. The remainder did what people do when the air gets honest. They ate cake with unusual focus. Harper stood beside Liam, arms crossed against a chill that wasn't in the thermostat. We'll fix the deck, she said under her breath, reflex still trying to tidy the narrative. Fix the company, I said. The deck can wait. She looked at me then, really looked, and for 1 second her expression lost every angle. You didn't humiliate him, she said quietly, almost surprised. That would have been easier, I said. We took our slices like citizens. I tasted frosting I didn't need and set my plate down. Then I tapped the face of the broken watch twice with my knuckle. Pattern interrupt, and the room, or maybe just my share of it, reset. Liam drifted to my side with his plate untouched. I'll be there at 9, he said, voice sanded down to something useful. Good, I said. Bring the passwords. He nodded. On my way to the door, I passed the podium and switched off the little reading light. The acrylic went dark with a small click that sounded like the truth sitting down. Outside, the rain had started. Soft, organized, capable of cleaning without erasing. I stood under the awning and listened for a minute. The glass of the restaurant showed me a dim reflection, a man holding a watch that didn't tick and a room that finally did. Behind me, plates chimed. Someone laughed for the right reason. Harper told the waiter to pack 2 slices for the kids. Liam put his phone away. The mask was on the floor. No one picked it up. Morning came without ceremony. The rain had rinsed the city into something clean enough to lie again. I sat by the window with black coffee and the broken watch ticking in my head instead of my hand. The real one still refused to move. It had learned restraint. At 8:55, I was already outside Marta's office, a law firm that smelled like old wood and consequence. The sign on the frosted door read, "Integrity doesn't have hours. It has documents." She'd had it made years ago. She earned it. Liam arrived at 9:03, sleeves rolled, breath short, eyes carrying the aftertaste of sleeplessness. Harper trailed him by a few steps, her phone gripped like a weapon she couldn't reload. "Morning," I said. He gave a nod that landed somewhere between defiance and apology. "You really meant it." "I told you last night," I replied. "Justice doesn't shout. It signs." Inside, Marta was already waiting. 60-something, sharp as her pen. She didn't do small talk, she did records. She gestured us into the conference room. "Sit," she said, "and don't confuse silence for permission." She spread the documents out, contracts, statements, filings, like a dealer laying out cards neither of us could fold on. The evidence token, envelope A, was now open, its contents arranged with surgical calm. The numbers didn't scream fraud. They whispered carelessness, ego, and convenience, which in law are just quieter forms of theft. Marta looked at Liam. "I've seen this pattern before. Bridge rounds used like patchwork. No clear disclosures, mixed personal and business expenses, delayed filings. It's not a felony yet, but the next invoice could turn it into one." Liam sank an inch into his chair. "So, what now?" "Now," Marta said, "you repair what can still be repaired." I slid the repayment plan across the table. 12 months, equal installments, funds routed through a new account, jointly overseen by Marta and Helen, one of your early investors. Transparent, clean. Harper exhaled sharply. "That's impossible." "No," I said. "It's math. Math doesn't apologize." Marta nodded, tapping the paper. "He's right. You can do this. It's painful, but it keeps you out of court and off headlines." Liam rubbed his face. And if I don't? Marta leaned back. Then the people your father warned last night will call me themselves. He looked at me. You really have the journalist? I smiled faintly. Envelope C's still sealed. That's how trust works. You leave it closed when people behave. He slumped. So I just sign this? Yes, Marta said, but not as punishment, as proof that you still understand the language of consequence. He stared at the page. I remembered the day I'd taught him to write his name, guiding his small hand over the loops. Now I watched that same hand tremble before it touched the pen. When he finally signed, I felt no victory, only gravity finding its balance. Harper's voice broke the pause. We'll need to tell our team. There are optics to manage. Marta raised an eyebrow. You'll tell the truth. That's the best optic left. I nodded toward Harper. Your gift is organization. Use it for restitution, not illusion. She looked down, and for once, said nothing. When the meeting ended, Marta folded the papers into a red folder, the color of consequence, and locked them in her drawer. You both have 30 days to make the first deposit. I'll send updates to all investors, monthly. Liam nodded. You'll copy Dad? She smiled thinly. You'll copy everyone. Transparency doesn't do private CCs. As we stepped out, Harper stopped at the door. Mr. Brooks, I didn't mean for things to go that far. I know, I said, but intentions don't pay receipts. She blinked hard and left. At the cafe across the street, I watched Liam order 2 black coffees. One for me, one for him. No sugar this time. Progress comes disguised as small symmetry. He sat down, both hands around his cup like he needed something stable to hold. I thought success was supposed to make things easier, he said. It does, I answered, until it starts making you dishonest. He nodded slowly. I messed up. You did, I said. But you stopped. That's the difference between guilt and growth. He stirred his coffee, though there was nothing to stir. Why didn't you just let me crash? Because, I said, you're still my son. And because the world already knows how to punish men who fall. Someone has to teach them how to stand again. He looked out the window. Mom texted. She took the kids to school. Said you were right about cliffs. I wasn't right, I said. I was just early. By evening, we met again, this time in the same side room at the restaurant. The staff had cleared the decorations. Only the stainless cabinet remained, the same one that had held the recorder. I pulled it open. The little device blinked red once before I turned it off. I want you to hear it, I said. I hit play. The recording filled the small room with our voices from the night before. The sales pitch, the confrontation, the pauses where truth had to be born. Liam sat frozen, listening to his own tone shift from confidence to confession. When the file ended, the silence that followed was cleaner than any apology could be. He looked at me. You could have ruined me with that. I didn't, I said. I built a mirror. He took a deep breath. So, what happens now? Now, I said, we do what the world doesn't expect. We fix it in daylight, he frowned. Publicly? Yes. We call every investor. We show them the plan. We sign in front of them. Justice Arena, remember that term from last night? This is it. He hesitated. That's humiliation. No, I corrected. That's redemption with a crowd. 3 days later, we did it. The community hall was small, plain, and perfect. Rows of folding chairs, one squeaky microphone, fluorescent lights that made honesty unavoidable. Helen was there with her ledger. 2 of the friends and family investors showed up, wary but curious. Marta carried the red folder like a priest with scripture. Liam stood beside me, pale but steady. Harper stayed behind the chairs, clutching her phone but not filming. I liked her for that. He read the apology letter aloud, voice unsteady but real. To everyone who believed in me. I confused ambition with integrity. I spent what wasn't mine, called it building, and learned the hard way that bridges can burn both ways. I will repay every cent, every month, until the math matches the promise. When he finished, Marta stepped forward. We've signed the plan. Funds are already in the verified account. She held up a stamped paper, the new justice token, the one that would outlast words. The audience clapped, awkward but genuine. It wasn't celebration, it was relief. Then it was my turn. I took the mic. When people say family is forever, I began, they forget that silence can last longer. But silence can also heal if you use it to listen instead of hide. I held up the broken watch. This stopped ticking 10 years ago. It's been waiting for a reason to move again. I handed it to Liam. Wind it. He did. The crown clicked once, twice, and then faintly, the second hand began to move. Just enough to be heard in the quiet room. That, I said, is the sound of a man who finally called back. Applause this time was softer, but it lasted longer. After the meeting, Harper approached me outside. You could have destroyed us. I looked at her, then at the faint light behind the window where Liam was talking to Helen and signing forms. I didn't need to destroy you, I said. You were already rebuilding. She nodded, then surprised me. Do you forgive me? I don't do forgiveness, I said. I do follow-up. That made her laugh, a real one this time. Later that night, I sat in my kitchen again. The watch ticked beside the coffee cup, steady and deliberate. I wrote a note on a small index card and slid it under the watch. 1. Don't raise your voice, raise your evidence. 2. Justice isn't revenge, it's repair. 3. Silence isn't empty when it's chosen. 4. Bridges can burn and still be rebuilt, if both sides bring wood, not fire. I placed the justice token, the stamped repayment document, next to it. Paper and steel, proof and pulse. I thought about the video clip that had glitched at the party, about masks and moments, about how truth always sneaks into the edit. Liam texted, deposited the first payment. Feels strange but right. I replied, strange is what truth feels like when it's new. I set the phone down, leaned back, and listened. The clock on the wall ticked, the broken watch ticked softer, and somewhere in between them, the sound of a family learning time again. Redemption isn't a speech. It's a schedule. A week after the final investor meeting, I wrote 5 rules on an index card and taped it to the inside of my kitchen cabinet. Eye level, where temptation keeps its coffee mugs. 1. Don't answer first. 2. Paper before promise. 3. Doors open for children. 4. Say the word peace out loud. 5. Earned, owed. I set the broken watch on the counter beneath the card. It ticked like a small metronome for the day I wanted to live. At 6:10 a.m., my phone buzzed once. Liam. The call lasted 4 seconds. Clocked in. Then a photo came through. Steel-toe boots, concrete dust, the edge of a clipboard. No hashtag, no brand, just proof. I replied with one word. Seen. Silence did the rest. Healthy silence. The kind that doesn't avoid anything. It respects it. By the second week, a rhythm formed. He worked mornings at the construction supplier. Luis had shifted him from backstock to receiving, where mistakes cost heavy. In the evenings, Liam stopped by my place only on Tuesdays and Fridays. He'd sit at the table, drop the receipt from Marta and the bank slip onto the wood, and say nothing until I slid a pen across. He'd sign the copy for my file. Paper before promise. Rule number 2. Luis says I'm slow, he said one night, rubbing the back of his neck. But accurate. Speed can be taught, I said. Accuracy is culture. He smiled a little at that. The watch ticked. Harper texted photos of Maya and Cole after school. Bird feeder projects. Spelling tests with red circles around joy instead of mistakes. I never asked Harper for anything. I just said thank you. Boundaries are not walls. They're handrails. On Thursdays, Elise came by with a pie that wasn't as good as she remembered, and coffee that was better than we both expected. We didn't talk about the old fights. We talked about Maya's drawing of a clock with a heart for a face, about Cole's fascination with doors that close properly. He pushes until it clicks, she said. Smart kid, I answered. Most people shove and walk away. Pattern interrupt. The kettle hissed. Elise turned the stove down and watched the steam calm. I didn't think you had this gear, she said. Which one? The quiet one that doesn't mean surrender. I didn't either, I said. On the last day of the month, Helen sent the update early. Subject line, tick. The attached PDF listed amounts and dates with the dry dignity of arithmetic. She added a single line. No adjectives. Perfect. I forwarded it to Liam with a period and to Marta with a thumbs up. That was our version of champagne. When word got around the supplier that Liam had chosen a smaller life on purpose, some of the men tested him the way men test each other when they can't afford tenderness. A socket wrench went missing. It reappeared in his locker. Someone tagged an invoice with his initials in a way that implied theft. Luis checked the cam footage, then called everyone together and said, "We fix wood and we fix truth. Both take squares." After that, the testing got more good-natured. A nickname stuck. Ledger. Liam didn't hate it. One afternoon, I walked to meet him after his shift. The bay door rattled open. He wiped his hands on a rag and pointed at a pallet he'd restacked. "Wait on the base," he said. I looked at the pallet, then at him. "Maya's Sugar City," I said. He laughed. I learned something useful at that party after all. We went for bad coffee. He paid cash and put the receipt in his wallet the way a person keeps a photo. "I don't know what to talk about with you besides work," he admitted. "Talk about rest," I said. "That's when people tell the truth." He stared out the window for a while. The quiet used to scare me. "Me too," I said, "because it mirrored things we didn't want to see. Now it mirrors things we're building." He nodded. "I haven't touched a deck in a month." "Good," I said. "You're building something the camera can't fake." At home, I added a sixth line to the index card. 6. Show up, then hush. The next Tuesday, Liam arrived with a rectangular bundle wrapped in contractor paper and blue painter's tape. He set it on my kitchen table like a confession. "For the shed," he said. I opened it. A chair, no varnish. Edges hand-sanded, lines honest. It squeaked when I set it down. Chairs tell the truth faster than people. "I used the shop saw after hours," he said. "Luis supervised. I still have all my fingers." We carried it to the small work shed in my backyard, the one with 3 windows and a door that sticks unless you lift while turning the knob. Inside, I'd been building another chair, the slow kind that teaches you patience by refusing to be done. Liam placed his next to mine. "Yours is straighter," he said. "Yours is braver," I said. We sanded for a while in the dusty light. After 20 minutes, Liam spoke, the way people do when their hands are busy. "I want to call the investors in person next month," he said. "Not just the group. One by one." "Do it," I said. "Even the ones who were cruel?" "Especially them. Cruel people expect to be avoided. It's how they stay lazy." He nodded, sanding the front rail until it decided to be smooth. "Can I bring Maya to the next call?" She asked what grown-ups do when they fix mistakes. "Bring her," I said. "But don't teach her to apologize for the whole species. Just teach her where to sign and when to stop talking." He grinned. "Harper will like that." "Harper will like receipts more," I said. A week later, we made good on the idea. Maya sat at my kitchen table with a coloring book, while Liam called an older investor named Watkins, who had been loud, then silent, then always CCing his lawyer. "Mr. Watkins," Liam said, "no excuses today. Just your update and your thanks." Maya looked up at the word thanks and underlined a cloud in blue. At the end of the call, Watkins didn't soften, but he didn't harden either. "Keep sending the numbers," he said. "That's all I ever trusted anyway." "Understood," Liam said. He hung up, looked at Maya, and mouthed, "We did it." She held the broken watch like a baby bird. "It's quieter than I thought," she said. That's because it's working, I told her. Sundays took on a new shape. Elise cooked too much on purpose and sent us home with containers labeled like time capsules. Tuesday soup, Thursday pasta, when you forget breakfast. She sat on my porch and told me the names of the birds she remembered, but I didn't, and we learned to use silence as furniture, something sturdy to sit on together. On a cold morning, Harper showed up alone. Coat buttoned high, eyes clear. She stood at the threshold like it was a test she wanted to pass without guessing. "I'm here to return something," she said. I waited. She handed me a small bag. Inside, the expensive watch Liam had given me at the party. I turned it over. The engraving looked gaudy now. "We didn't earn this story," she said. "We edited it." I set the watch beside the broken one. The expensive one hummed with a battery. The old one earned each second by hand. "I'm keeping the broken one," I said. She smiled. "I figured." Then she surprised me. "I got a part-time job at the school cafeteria. Not glamorous, very measurable." She exhaled. "I wanted to build something that didn't require convincing." "Good," I said. "Food is proof." She nodded at the index card on my cabinet. "I like number 4, she said. Saying peace out loud. "Try it," I said. She did. It sounded new in her mouth, and then less new. That evening, Liam texted a photo from his apartment. The Justice token scan tacked to a corkboard, the repayment schedule underneath, a cheap calendar with X's through the days he'd kept his promises. In the corner, a child's drawing, Maya's clock with the heart face again, this time with hands at 7:05. He captioned it, "We're learning time." On the last Friday of the quarter, Marta held a brief check-in at her office. 10 minutes, no drama. "On track," she said. 2 investors ahead of schedule." She closed the folder and peered over her glasses. "Boundaries holding?" "Holding," I said. She nodded. "Then don't fix anything else today. Go be ordinary." So we were. Liam and I ate tacos from a truck that didn't accept cards. He paid cash and didn't keep the change like it proved something. We sat on a curb and watched a dog decide between 2 smells. The watch ticked in my pocket. The city went about its business, unconcerned with our little miracle. On the walk back to his car, Liam stopped. "Dad," he said, "I never told you the stupidest thing I did. You've told me plenty. This is worse." He held my eyes like he was steadying a ladder. "I once rehearsed the call I would make if you died. What I'd say at the funeral. How I'd frame it so I wouldn't look like the son who disappeared." I waited for anger. It didn't show up. Something else did. "Thank you for not needing that speech," I said. He swallowed. "Thank you for not needing an audience." We stood there long enough to be intentional. Then he lifted his chin toward my street. "Maya wants to bring a birdhouse Sunday. She says the yard needs a tenant." "Tell her the rent is sunflower seeds," I said. He laughed, then got in the car. The engine coughed once, the honest kind of car, and settled. Back home, I moved the chair he'd built into the shed's light. It looked like work, learning to be grace. I added a small hook to the wall and hung the broken watch from it, eye level, where temptation keeps its coffee mugs. Let it tick for the room. I picked up the pen and wrote one final line below the rules, not numbered, just underlined. Redemption is a chore chart. Do yours. The kettle clicked off. The house breathed. Outside, a bird tested a branch. I said the word out loud so it would hear me. "Peace." The second hand agreed. The house was quiet again, but not the way it used to be. It wasn't the heavy kind of silence that made you count the seconds and wonder what went wrong. It was a gentler silence, one that filled the space evenly, as if every wall had finally forgiven the echoes it once held. It was my 71st birthday. No cameras, no speeches, no crowd pretending they cared. Just Maya, Cole, Harper, and a small cake she baked from scratch. Uneven icing, lopsided candle, sweet in all the right ways. Liam arrived last, holding something wrapped in brown paper under his arm. He smiled like a man who still wasn't sure if he was welcome, but came anyway. "Don't worry," he said. "No contracts, no pitch decks." I laughed. "Then it's already perfect." We ate slowly, the way people do when they know they're not trying to impress anyone. Maya giggled at the frosting on my chin. Cole made me blow out the candle twice, just to make sure the wish stuck. Maybe it did. When the laughter faded, Liam unwrapped his gift. Inside was a simple wooden frame, the justice token, cleanly mounted beside a small brass plate that read, "Silence, evidence, justice, boundaries, work, peace." He said, "I wanted to name the journey." I looked at him, then at everyone around the table and smiled. "It already had a name," I said. "Family." Harper chuckled. "That's better branding?" Even Elise, who'd joined quietly, laughed for the first time in a decade. "You finally got what you wanted," she said. I shook my head. "No," I told her. "I finally got what I needed." After dinner, Maya asked to see the shed. The air outside smelled like sawdust and memory. She ran ahead, lifting the old door that still stuck halfway. She knew the trick. A little lift, a patient turn. Inside, the two chairs sat side by side, his finished, mine still stubbornly imperfect. She brushed the dust off the seat. "It doesn't wobble anymore," she said proudly. "That's because we stopped rushing," I told her. She looked at the broken watch hanging on the wall. "Does it still tick?" she asked. "Yes," I said, "but only when someone listens." She thought about that, then smiled. "That's weird." "Everything true is a little weird," I said, and she nodded like she'd already learned something worth keeping. "Grandpa, are we done fixing everything now?" she asked. I knelt beside her and smiled. "We're not done, sweetheart. We're just caught up." Later that night, Liam joined me on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. One was chipped, mine. He handed it to me like it meant something again. "Mom's moving back into town," he said. "She told me," I said. "You okay with that?" He nodded. "Yeah, feels smaller now, right-sized." We sat there in the quiet, watching the shed glow faintly under the porch light. "Maya checks the birdhouse every morning," he said. "A pair of finches moved in." I smiled. "Birds know where they're safe." He looked down and nodded. "Guess people do too." The next morning, sunlight crawled across the kitchen counter and caught the corner of the index card taped inside my cabinet. The same one that had carried my rules all year. Don't answer first. Paper before promise. Doors open for children. Say peace out loud. Earned is greater than owed. Show up, then hush. I added one more line at the bottom. When peace knocks, open the door. Don't ask for ID. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Marta. All accounts closed. Full repayment confirmed. Then another from Helen. You kept your promise. He kept his word. Tick. I wound the watch gently 3 turns and listened to it come back to life. A sound steadier than forgiveness. Quieter than pride. That afternoon, I watched Liam help Cole fix his bike chain in the yard, while Harper poured lemonade that was too sweet, but poured with love. Elise laughed from the porch as Maya drew another clock on the steps with chalk, the hands pointing at noon. Time, finally, was on our side. For 10 years, silence had meant punishment. Now it meant peace. The sound of forgiveness isn't loud. It's the soft rhythm of someone choosing to stay. I stepped outside. Liam looked up from the bike. Peace? I said. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Peace, he answered. Maybe that's how justice really sounds. Not a gavel, not applause, not victory fireworks, just time keeping its promise. And if this story found a place in you, if you've ever rebuilt something quietly, or forgave someone without saying the word out loud, then leave me one word in the comments. Peace. Because peace isn't silence. It's proof you made it through. And if you believe, like I do, that justice doesn't always shout, that sometimes it just signs, sometimes it just breathes, then stay here with us. Subscribe if you want to keep walking through stories where silence wins and dignity speaks. Because every tick matters, every voice counts, and sometimes, silence is how truth survives.